So, if Richard, if you could just go on to the first slide, just to talk about what the agenda we're going to cover tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about the 2021 cricket season, a little touch on DBS and what some of the things that are happening around that. Particularly with the season coming up, it's pretty important that we try and get that sorted. Training for club welfare officers and volunteers, safe hands management system, which some clubs will already be aware of and some won't, but we'll give you a bit of an insight into that. There'll be an opportunity for question and answers at the end, and then we'll do a little bit of a summary to close off. What we'll do at each stage, we will stop briefly, and if there are any questions, we'll try and cover them off. So after we've done the DBS, there's an opportunity to ask questions. There were one or two that have come in through the when we asked people to sign up for the webinar. So, but if there's anything outside that, please don't be afraid to ask. If we'll try and answer them as best we can. If we can't get an answer tonight, we'll get an answer to you outside that. So I think Richard's going to present the first couple of slides. So off you go, Richard.
Thanks, Mick. Okay, so thanks everyone for joining us. Just going to give you a few updates around the season ahead of us. Albeit, we haven't got lots of detail at this stage around the return to cricket, but I should be able to hopefully be able to give you a bit of a steer on where things are heading. The first point on the slide is around safe hands policy. So just a reminder really that safe hands is still the policy for cricket around safeguarding. And that, we'd hope that you as welfare officers or safeguarding officers, as you're going to be now, are sharing that information with your members. It's visible within the clubhouse when we do return during the summer. So, try and make as many people aware of that as possible and make safeguarding a talked about subject within the club. The second point around the lockdown safeguarding site, ECB have got lots of useful resources and ways of engaging with your members and supporting your members through a difficult time. So worth having a look. If has anyone on the screen, put your hands up if you've visited that site yet. A couple. Okay, so yeah, worth having a look. There might be some useful things on there that might help you in terms of implementing safeguarding within the club as things stand in a lockdown. I just mentioned it there. I'm hoping everyone's had some information so far around title changes. So historically, you've been called club welfare officers. There's going to be a change in title to club safeguarding officers, and Angela's role as county welfare has changed to county safeguarding. And the main reason for that is really just to bring us in line with national terminology. So a lot of the safeguarding bodies, Sport England and so on, would refer to the role as safeguarding rather than welfare. So it's the sort of well-known term, and that is the main reason, just to bring us in line with the national picture. So there's nothing more to it.
You don't need to rush to change all your paperwork instantly. You can just work at it gradually. If you've got to change some of your paperwork, do it, but don't think you've got to change everything immediately.
Yeah, I guess it's just more the point that, that's how you'll be referred to. Yeah. We had a webinar last week and I kept saying welfare officer and it's safeguard. So it's going to take some getting used to, I think, to change from that. The other point, so I guess the one where we've not quite got as much information as what we'd want as far as return to cricket at the moment, but Mick and I have seen some draft guidance. I was on a call today with the ECB, and we're all still, very much hoping that we can return to some form of recreational sport from the 29th of March. That being said, there's a checkpoint around the 22nd where hopefully all the guidance will be signed off. And at that point, we'll be able to share the full detailed guidance with you as cricket clubs. I think one thing that is obvious that we're going to be with restrictions when we start the season. Very similar to how we finished the season last year. So things like the sanitisation breaks and so on, they're clearly going to be in place, particularly in the earlier stages of the season. The other thing I think to expect is group sizes around training. I think they'll be around where we were right at the start of the lockdown last year. So groups of 6, I think, is likely from the 29th. And we'll probably not see that increase until around the 17th of May, I think. So just bear that in mind when your clubs are planning junior practice and senior practice and so on. We hope, as I said, we're hoping that the official guidance will be signed off on the 22nd of March. However, I think we'll be sharing with you over the next week or so a bit of a roadmap as to what the season will look like and various checkpoints along the way. So as soon as we get that through, we'll share that information with you. The last point was around just the interim arrangements, which are obviously COVID related. So those who might have already done it, you might have done the online Safe Hands course last season or over the last few months. So the ECB have put in place a interim provision for welfare officers, safeguarding officers that are up for renewal. And also, Mick's going to give you a bit more information on that in a moment. The DBSs, again, is there's an interim position, which I'm going to share with you in a second. Any questions on any of that? Have we had anything in the chat, Mick?
Yeah, there's Dave Finn from Lullington has said, playing an inter-club 11-a-side practice match, say on 10th of April, seemed to be okay, or is that still? I think we're making that assumption, aren't we, at the minute? But
yeah, I mean the guidance is hoping to be put in place from the 29th of March. So, providing that goes through, then I think that would be logical. But at this stage, we don't know that for definite. I think there might be some issues, some challenges around travel as well. So trying to remain fairly local in the early stages of the season. So Dave obviously will work with you on that from a league point of view as well when we know a bit more. But I don't see, if the guidance is signed off and everything goes to the roadmap of the 29th of March, then I can't see why internal fixtures on that date would be an issue, or potentially even local friendlies.
Yeah, I think the other thing that was said on the club webinars is, Richard, that when we get the guidance, we'd hope to run some webinars to go through that for clubs as well, which club people, welfare officers or whoever, would be welcome to attend. I think that's, although we've not put any dates in for that yet, have we?
No, I mean, we'd hope that by the end of March we have some dates in for either that week of the end of March or the first week in April, so we can help you and give you enough time to prepare within the clubs. But obviously that's dependent on when we receive the final guidance. Anything else, Mick, before I move us on?
Yeah, Kirsten's asked a question about online courses, and we'll pick that up shortly, Kirsten, for everybody. So we'll explain what's happening with that, if that's okay.
Okay, I'll move us on then. So the next point was just around DBSs. I'm sure all of you are aware that there's a slight change in how the DBS verification process goes now. So due to COVID at the moment, there's a temporary measure in place where verification of DBS is done online through a video call or virtual call, or whatever you want to call it. And the ID is verified through that means. That will remain in place, I think, for the next few months. As far as I'm aware, I can't see that'll change anytime soon. In terms of the verifying, so you as welfare officers might be verifiers within your club. As things stand, there's only a limited number of people that can verify in the county. So there's myself, there's Mick, Angela, and then our club and community officers, so James, Charlie and Tom. So the 6 of us can all verify and also initiate applications. So if there's anyone that needs DBSs, then please do get in touch with any of us. Mick loves doing DBSs, so by all means get in touch with Mick. What I'd say is just, the season's not far away now. We're fast approaching. So now is really the time to start cracking down on the DBS check. So making sure your captains have got DBSs in place, coaches are all up to date, and any sort of official activity within the club. Managers within teams that are having regular contact, scorers, parents, anyone that's in an official role that is relevant for a DBS, then please make sure they're up to date.
But make sure you've got a vice captain DBS as well, because we keep losing captains mid-season.
Yeah, good point, Angela. Because if the captain is away for a weekend or anything, then you're going to have someone stepping in, aren't you? So, where possible, make sure there's some cover there. And as I said, in terms of support, we'll gladly assist you with that. If there's anyone, hopefully you all as club safeguarding officers have a record of where people are at with DBSs. But if there's anyone you need us to check, then get in contact with any of us, and we'll have a look at that, and we'll gladly help you and assist you with it. But what I'd ask is please get onto it sooner rather than later, because what we don't really want to happen is, every club in the county trying to initiate applications right at the just before the season starts. Kirsten, you've got your hand up.
Sorry, Rick. I don't know how many the five of you have had, but I'd have thought we'd have had a few more coming through.
Mick's doing loads. He's doing about 5 a day, aren't you, Mick?
Well, since I've got used to Zoom, and Microsoft Teams, yeah.
That's all right then.
Go on, Kirsten.
Yeah. Please, can you? I've tried to have a look on the ECB site and I wasn't sure. So I know who has to have a DBS, but I wondered at what point, what age. So like we have some of the under 17 lads who are sort of, university, whatever, they come back and they perhaps help with training. At what age do you have to have a DBS? Is there an age, is it 16 or is it at any point?
It's 16, Kirsten.
16. Lovely, thank you.
And we'd obviously advise that anyone who's having regular contact with a group of players that, juniors should have a DBS. There's always going to be the occasion where you might have, if someone comes to support for 1 week, and it would be unrealistic for us to say that person needs to. But if they're having regular sustain, then it'd be good practice to get them DBS checked after the age of 16.
Yeah, Richard, we've got a question in the chat from Helen at Swarkston around highlighting how to initiate checks. So, do we send a list to one of the officials or ask each official to contact you? It can be either way. It doesn't really matter if people contact individually. If you collect the information, Helen, the information that we need to set it up is full name, date of birth, email address, and the role in the club that needs an ECB DBS check. So people can do that individually, or you can do that as club safeguarding officer. And
after last week, I had a couple of clubs who sent through lists of people that they were checking on, and then I initiated a lot after that.
Yeah. I think the easiest option would be if you've got a record and you know that 4 or 5 have lapsed, then just send a spreadsheet through or an email that's got them all in, and we can initiate them pretty much in a few minutes. So, and it is anyone who's done it will know it is really simple now to do it. It's an online form. It takes a few minutes, providing you've got your evidence and you've not got to find your birth certificate or something. But it doesn't take long at all. So there's no real excuse, I think, for anyone getting it done now. And it comes through fairly quick as well. Any other questions, mate?
Don't think there are any other questions at the moment on DBS. That's a very quick run through DBS. I'm sure there'll be 1 or 2 more come through later, Angela.
I'm amazed. I can't believe it. It took about half an hour last week.
It did, yes. It took a bit to get into it.
Yeah, so if there's any questions, then put them in the chat and we can answer them later, can't we?
Yeah.
To move on?
Yeah. Okay, so just to touch on training for club welfare officers, club safeguarding officers and volunteers. So So as most people will know, no current face-to-face training available. So Safe Hands is being updated, so it's fairly unlikely that face-to-face courses will be available until the summer. So from our point of view, normally our face-to-face trainings in this period, we're normally in the middle of our training, so it's probably unlikely that we're going to do any face-to-face training until the summer or beyond that. So it's online training available from through the ECB. There are regular courses being run. They are filling up quite quickly. So if you're not booked on a course and need to attend a course, please don't leave it too late. Get in touch with myself and I will pass information on to you. There's a link that you can book on a course with ECB. If a course is full, you can put yourself on a waiting list. So this is for new club welfare officers or existing club welfare officers who need to renew the training. In terms for any club welfare officers that have already done a Safe Hands online, you'll recall that the ECB at the time made these valid for 12 months, for a period of 12 months. They've extended the validity of that to 24 months. So if you did an online course, that gives you 24 months of cover. So if you did it last June, in June 2020, it'll take you up to June 2022. And then one other thing that the ECB are doing, and this is something that's come through quite a number of times, that people have talked about safeguarding for other volunteers within the club. So safeguarding has been very much concentrated around coaches, club welfare officers in the main, but they are going to open that up. So there's going to be some online safeguarding courses for other volunteers within the club. So it might be your team managers, your club chairman, and other people within the club that you might think it's good practice to have more people with a basic knowledge of safeguarding. So, and those will be launched, and I think it's due any time soon, the launch of those workshops. And then we're also getting quite a few requests around around first aid and what can we do with first aid courses, because lots and lots of people coming up to needing them. Now we are going to schedule in some courses, and we'll be releasing dates shortly. So from the end of March, we'll have some courses that your volunteers or your coaches that need to attend a face-to-face first aid course can link onto. If you've got sufficient numbers in your club, we can run those as a club event only. So you'd probably we'd ask you to have 10 to 12 people. Obviously that your room it's making sure your room is big enough to socially distance and run a course as well. There'd have to be a risk assessment done on that at this point. I mean, that's a brief one. I've seen one or two questions coming in, Richard, on the chat. Don't know if we can pick it, which we can pick up.
I'm replying to Dinting, Meg.
Yeah.
I've sorted Dinting.
Right. Okay. So how often do we need to renew Safe Hands training? If it's your online course, it lasts 2 years. If you did a face-to-face, we did do, I think, a couple of face-to-face courses in March 2020. The face-to-face training is 3 years. So you're in after 3 years if it's a face-to-face course. I've had that a couple of times. And then Nicola from Chapel, yes, I've picked up your DBSs. I think you might have hopefully got the message that there are lots and lots of people asking about DBSs at the minute. So accept my apologies. I've not got round to getting round to all the people that are asking at the moment, but I will do, and I will set them up and I will let you know when I've done that. Are there any other questions? Oh, first aid per club. Angela, do you want to pick that? I'm joking. I'm sure you'll chip in. I mean, really, what you've got to do, Kirsten, it's around the club, making sure you've got enough first aid people around to cover the activity that you run. So particularly your juniors, I'd always recommend you should have somebody on first aid when you're doing your training nights. And my view is that you're better overcovered than undercovered in around first aid. Angela, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
I mean, last week it was asked whether you should have a first aider at every senior game, and that's not really feasible for most clubs. If you've got people trained, the more you've got trained in the club, the better it is. That's the overall. But to have somebody at every senior game isn't. What you should have is that, what I would recommend is that every manager or coach that has their own portable first aid kit, so that they take that with them when they go to away matches, so that if they need to get something to hand, they know what they've got. They're not relying on another club for what they've got there. Or there might be something that one member of your club needs that probably wouldn't be in a normal first aid kit. But to how many first aiders in the club, it's really a club decision. I don't know what you think, Richard.
Yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, if we were looking at best practice, there would always be someone on site that's first aid qualified. But you know, at the end of the day, everyone are volunteers, and it's a challenge. I think where I'd expect someone to always be present first aid is for junior practice. So I think if there should always really be someone first aid qualified on site if you're running junior practice or games.
You should have, because your coaches should be qualified.
Well, they should, Angela, if they're an old level 2. But the new Foundation 1 cohorts coming through now don't have to have a first aid as part of the course. So that might not be the case going forward, you see. I mean, we would always recommend that any coaches doing one of our courses do a first aid course, but it's not a mandatory requirement anymore as part of the qualification, because you can't.
Strange.
It's to do with basically, you know, it shouldn't be a criteria for you to pass a first aid course to be a qualified coach, because it's not part of coaching. So that's why it's been removed from the accreditation process. But we would always recommend that if someone's working with juniors, then it would be good to have a basic knowledge of first aid. But I think as to ratios, I think you know, the bigger club you are, the bigger player, you know, the larger pool of players you've got, you would need more first aid. I don't think there's an accurate number as to how many, but you know, coaching ratios, you're looking at 1 to 24. So would you say, you know, ideally you'd have one with each group, wouldn't you? But again, that's not always going to be feasible.
It's worth clubs just auditing your volunteers around your club, or even your players, because I think you might find there's a lot more people that have got some safe hands training through work that is good enough.
First aid, you might have quite a few of first aid qualified for work. Yes.
Mate, there's one more question from Kev at Colaston, just saying that there's no mention of the UK Sport SPC. Is that no longer required for safeguarding officers?
Well, I think what the ECB have done, the ECB as an interim measure have given people access to the club safeguarding officers access to the safeguarding young cricketers, and I think that's pending their review on what they're going to look for in the future. If people want to do the online UK course, as far as I understand, that's fine. But I think the word conscious, that's a relatively recent, sorry, not the online one, because they do an online one, but they also do a face-to-face webinar, UK coaching as well. And I've asked a question, but I haven't had an answer yet from ECB whether they'll accept that. I think there's a question about how do you link it up to our systems as well, Richard, in that. So I've got to find an answer through that, but we'll ask again, Kev. And I've seen a couple in the chat around cost for courses. The online welfare courses, there isn't any cost for those. When we're doing the face-to-face first aid courses, there will be a cost to those courses. And then there's one about safe hands. How to need to renew it. If you've done it with Derbyshire, if you let us know when you did it, then we can find out and perhaps feed that back to you. You should have had a certificate on the course as well. And it could also be in the it should be in the ECB system, shouldn't it, Richard? Somewhere.
Yeah, we just need a full name, and we'll be able to check that. Whoever it is, and we'll be able to check that out on the system, providing they've done it, and there's a qualification on there. We'll be able to find it.
Sorry, Richard.
I was going to say there's one about coaches in terms of how long a coaching qualification lasts. There's no expiry on it. I guess like any sort of qualification, and it's about trying to be relevant and keep yourself up to date in terms of CPD. So I think there's no expiry on a coaching qualification, but we'd always recommend that if someone did a course in the late 90s, then probably would be worthwhile attending some form of CPD or doing some online modules and things just to get up to date, I guess, with some of the new coaching practices. And it depends how active that coach is. I'm sure if a coach did a course then and they're still active now, they'll be keeping up to date with things anyway. I hope that answers that one.
Yeah. Do you want to move on, Richard?
Move us on, mate.
Yes, please. Yeah. Safe hands management system. Okay, so some clubs will be aware of this because they're already involved in the system, and some clubs won't at the moment, and I'll come through to the reason for that. So it is going to be something that's going to come to all clubs. So I thought it worth including on this, and it's a system which is to support clubs, ensuring individuals and volunteers have got the relevant DBS in place and qualifications for the role. So it's around improving safeguarding standards. So clubs are required to register individuals in key roles. So the roles that need a DBS, they'll be put on that site. And the system then picks up, or will in time pick up, information. It's currently picking up information on DBS and safe hands qualification with clubs. So at the moment, where that's going to really help clubs is that having the system, rather than you having paper copies or a spreadsheet where you've got all your information on and having to contact us to see who's got a DBS in your club, you should have that information at your fingertips, really, or the club should have. And then as we move forward, it'll add other qualifications that for coaches like first aid, online safeguarding young cricketers, they'll be added in the future. This system's not yet replaced Club Mark. One or two clubs are thinking it's down to be a replacement for Club Mark, and it isn't. It's one aspect to support Club Mark. Club Mark's currently going through a review, and we'll know a little bit more about that as we move forward. But I'm not expecting that information until towards the back end of 2020. The only requirement for 2021 is that Club Mark accredited clubs are compliant with the safe hands management system by the start of the 2021 season. In some of the documentation that's coming out, it's talking about a date of 31st of July. But I think it's worth sort of reminding clubs that if you've got a captain, he needs to be DBS checked before the start of the season. If you've got a welfare officer, they need to be DBS and done the training before the start of the season. So I think that's created a little bit of, if you like, it's a slightly mixed message, because yes, on the 31st of July, a Club Mark club will be checked, but really the checking system from a club point of view, you need to have people that need a DBS on the system, or not. It doesn't matter if they're on the system; they should be DBS checked. Sorry if that's been a bit confusing. We'll maybe work through that. Richard, can you just move on to the next slide? Which just one or two of the benefits around the system. I think it's a user-friendly online system, easily accessible. It's allowing clubs to manage their own safeguarding compliance rather than relying on lots of other people. And we know, as Richard's already said, with the quantity of inquiries that we're getting around DBS, that sometimes it's not as straightforward to get information off people as it might be. And with the update service on DBS, it just rolls on people. So you might think somebody's dropping out of date, but actually it's just been automatically renewed, which is good news for the people that have done the DBS check. But if you're a club safeguarding officer and you haven't got that information, I can see, Angela, you're waving. Do you want to chip in?
It's just about the fact you're on about automatic renewal. Some clubs have questioned about where they're questioning whether people are on automatic renewal. Not everybody is ticking the box for it. If they don't tick the box, the following year it comes up and they get an email from the ECB saying that they're checking them again because they haven't ticked the automatic renewal box, and they'll have to do a new DBS. If you're on automatic renewal, you get an email that tells you you're being checked, and are you still in role, and you still want to be checked and continue, that's fine. But if you can encourage your clubs, well, your users, to make sure they tick the box for automatic renewal, because it makes it a lot easier. Otherwise, they're doing it every year.
Okay, thanks, Angela. As much as anything else, there's a bit of a peace of mind for club officials, because having that information up to date as you approach the season, and if you're in a league, it's likely that you're going to have league officers asking you, is your club welfare officer, has he done his training, or their training, hair training, etc., etc. So I think it's really important to once you get on this system, to use it to what it can be used for, and it will give you a lot of that information. Well, it should give you all the information you need, no more spreadsheets. One benefit to the system, people might be aware of, or the clubs that are already on the system will be aware, that there's a free club liability insurance for the registered clubs. So where this comes in, it offers an element of insurance. It doesn't cover the whole club's insurance, but it covers public liability, employers' liability, officers and directors, indemnity, and I think cyber insurance as well. So I think there are 5 key points there. And I know there's 1 or 2 clubs are taking up that opportunity to arise. So if you've had an experience with, well, hopefully it's been a good experience. The feedback we had at one of the club webinars is that clubs were able to save some money from doing that. As a club, you don't have to take up that insurance. You can take that up, or you can mix it with your existing insurer, or you can get a quote for your whole insurance from that company. So when you do get access to the portal, please take the opportunity to have a look at that. Richard, can you move on to the next slide? We'll take some questions, because I think there's 1 or 2 questions, but I think we could probably might answer 1 or 2 of those as they come through, as I've seen them. But
yeah, we'll cover them after the next slide, showing it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've seen 1 or 2 people asking about what roles, and this is around about DBS, but it's the same thing. So the roles in the slide there indicates what the roles that need a DBS form. So whether you're on the Safe Hands management system or just on how you run that at the moment, it's the same roles: age group managers, activators, coaches, assistant coaches, welfare officers, assistant, first aiders, junior supervisors. Open age team captains, and now do vice captains as well, so we recommend that. Scorers age 16 and above, umpires, volunteer coordinators. So On the system itself, you'll need a club administrator. So somebody needs to take that, and often it is club welfare officers that have taken on that role. The club chair needs to be identified, although those people don't necessarily need a DBS to be included. If they're a coach, they'd have a DBS anyway. Is there any more MS slides, Richard? It might be
you've just got one just on the phased rollout, which I think will answer a few of the questions, mate.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So it's a phased rollout. So the phase one, which we're in Derbyshire, this is a phase one Derbyshire role, is club mark accredited clubs, of which I think we've got 39 altogether. Now, not all 39 clubs have got access to this. It's being rolled out by ECB nationally at 100 clubs a week. So we're getting, on average, we're getting 3 clubs a week. That's what we're getting that are being given access to the system. So I know lots of clubs are saying, well, when can I have access to the system? We literally don't have any influence on that. That's just being dealt with centrally by ECB. And it is linked, the way they're doing it is linked to when clubs insurance policy runs out. That's why they've done it. I'm not quite sure how they've done it, but that's the way they're doing it. Phase 2, clubs with a junior section, which I'm anticipating, without any, I don't think we can guarantee this, but I'm expecting that will be towards the end of the cricket season, Richard. I think that's about right by the sound of it. And then phase 3 will be the clubs that haven't got a junior section. So everyone will have the opportunity to benefit from the system in due course. And I think that's it for that. I've seen loads of questions in the chat, so I don't know if we can start picking.
Yeah, I'll pick a few out for you, Mick.
Right.
So Helen asked one just about new to the role and the safe hands management. My role isn't showing as complete. Helen, I think I'll answer that. I think we'll check that for you and have a look why that is. But if you're down as the county safeguard, or the club safeguarding officer, and you've not got safe hands as an example, or you've not got a DBS, then that's why it would show as incomplete. But it may just be it's not matched up if you have got them in place. So if you're happy, we'll have a look at that. And
sometimes it's to do with the name, isn't it, or the email address?
Yeah. So have you done the safe hands course, Helen?
No, I haven't.
So that would be why.
Right.
So Mick will probably Mick and Charlie as your club officer can pick that one up with you, just as how we can get you through that. One from Aston around, do captains, vices at clubs with no junior teams but who run all stars, dynamos need DBS?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One for you, Angela. With the automatic renewal from Kev Holgate, Ticknell, do you get a confirmation when the DBS is concluded?
I'm just replying to him, actually. Okay. It's a long reply.
Okay, yeah. The safe hands one we've covered. Should we be asking to see an umpire's DBS?
No. The umpires, if it's an umpire through the league, the league and the ACO should be monitoring umpires, and all umpires are required to have a DBS check. So if it's, I'm assuming that's the question. If it's anything different, that one, you if you're in league cricket, that's where you get your umpires from, isn't it? Through the league.
Yeah. One about an overseas. So we've got an overseas coming. He'll be doing some training. What will they need apart from DBS? Is it safeguarding?
Right. So
Sarah.
Yeah. If it's, I mean, it might be something to take off, out of the context of the meeting. But generally speaking, the overseas, and I'm sure Dave Dave Fern, who's on the call from the league. If it's in the Derbyshire County League, there's a requirement that they do a safeguarding and protecting children course, which I've already, I've been in discussions with Dave. We've set a date aside for that if we're able to do it. So that's one element. If they're on a Tier 5 visa, they're required to do a health and safety module through the ECB, and people can book that through ourselves at the Cricket Foundation.
Nick, so just put it in. The overseas player who comes in, especially if he's on Tier 5, will need a police clearance certificate from his home country. He won't get a DBS as such in this country. It's got to be issued by the police authority in the country that he's native of.
Yeah, thanks very much, Dave. Yes. Dave, I don't know while you're on, is there any updates on this sort of exemption for people that are living in this country, or
the thing that is the ECB have clarified it today. There'll be two categories this season. There's category 1, which basically is for people who have lived for 210 days in the year between the 30th of April and the 30th of March and the 1st of April. They will be classified as category 1. If they haven't done the 210 days in that same period, they will be category 3. There's no category 3 exempt. So they're either qualified in the sense that they've been here for 210 days, or they're unqualified because they haven't been here for 210 days, and that would put them into category 3, which is an overseas. And when they register on the website, now you'll see that the drop-down box, it asks for passports. It issues obviously British, Irish, because Irish nationals can come in without passport and without visa. But EU nationals, unless they've got settled status and meet the 210 days, now are overseas players.
Yeah. Okay. Richard, there's one from Jamie. Jamie, I don't quite understand. I don't know if I'm not seeing that.
Yeah, I think, Mick, it's I think the point around, I presume the point around DBS. Angela, your reply direct. Could you perhaps put that, just so everyone's aware of what happens with that, some form of update?
I was interested in the answer to that question. That was all. So.
Yeah.
Well, if I read it out, so right, let's go back to Kevin's question then. So I get you right.
It was basically, would they get a notification, Angela, if once it's concluded for the auto renewal?
Right. What happens for the auto renewal is the individual themselves gets an email, and I can vouch for this because I got mine last week. So I'm speaking from experience from my own. Is you get an email that asks if you're still enrolled. If you're still enrolled, you don't do anything, and the ECB in the background will continue to run the check to make sure that you've not had a conviction in the 12 months since. If you don't want to continue in the role, if you're resigning, you then reply to the email and say, and that's it, the DBS finishes and that's it. Now, if you haven't ticked the auto renewal, you will get an email telling you that you haven't ticked auto renewal. Are you still enrolled? Your DBS is due to expire. You need to do a new one. Now, there is still that thing that it's in place for 3 years, but because you haven't ticked the auto renewal, they're actually asking you to redo it after a year, just so that it's keeping the renewal going annually for everybody. It's quite hard to, so that person then has to do a new DBS. Now, if they refuse to do a new DBS, that flags up big question marks to the ECB and to myself as to why they suddenly don't want the DBS to be redone, or why they haven't ticked auto renewal. If it's just a blip, they'll do the DBS and we'll go on and everything will be fine. If they say they no longer want to do that role and they don't want to do the DBS, they just want to be a player, the ECB at this point will actually ask that that individual still does the DBS application, because they're then wanting to know if there's something in the background that that person doesn't want to be known, that something's happened. It might be something the club isn't aware of. Sometimes it might be somebody's got a speeding ticket and thinks it's going to flag up and it's not. So that's where that comes in. The club itself will not be informed about any of what's going on. I will be if the DBS has been they're turning down redoing the DBS. If they've said they're resigning from the role, quite often they may well copy in the verifier who's verified the application as well as myself. But basically, it's just me that will see the email as well as the individual. And then I will, if needs be, I contact the club directly and talk to them about what's happening and offer advice on where we go from here. Hopefully that explains it all.
Yeah, thanks, Angela.
Can I just clarify the question, because it wasn't the question of the auto renewal, that there was the actual question. I'm on auto renewal, so I got the same email that you got, and said yes, carry on, no problem at all. That was about, I would say, probably 2 months ago, and I've not received anything since to say that that check has been completed.
Right, I need to talk to you out of this meeting, Kevin, because I've got yours in front of me, and I was going to message you privately because I've got a question mark about it.
Okay, that's fine.
It's nothing to worry about, so it's all right. I've just got a question mark.
I should hope not.
So I'll talk to you outside the meeting.
Yeah, fine.
I think the thing is that, you know, do the auto renewal. Once you're on the Safe Hands management system, it will pick up these dates. I can appreciate there can be a bit of frustration at the minute, but as I see things, once people are on the Safe Hands management system, it will pick that up automatically and automatically renew and update on an ongoing basis. So you should always have the information you need.
Mick, I'm just going to say there's a few on the DBS, so it may be worth, when we send out the slides, if we could between us just pull together a bit of a supporting document to go along with it, just around that. So I know we've had some information on it recently from ECB, so I think it'd be worth us we can send that as a supporting document.
Mick and I talked about that after the last one.
Yeah. Okay.
There was just a couple of others. So, is the renewal system the same as registering for the update service? It is, yeah. It's through the government update service, but it's done by the ECB, so it takes you through to their site from the ECB renewal. The Lorraine on initiating DBS. No, that's what we need, full names. So make sure it is full names and not just an abbreviation or a shortened name. It needs to be the full name.
And if it's a name like Stephen or the proper spelling. Yeah.
We don't need the home address, because when they get sent the application form, they put those details in, so that they'll complete all of that.
Yeah. Okay, I can see something about, I think we've answered the police check thing. The health and safety, I think if you're on a tier 5 visa, that's just a requirement of the health and safety. That's a requirement of the visa. And if people don't, just as just worth mentioning, if someone doesn't do those courses that are on a tier 5 visa, they won't be allowed to come back in subsequent seasons. So that's as I understand it. It's a requirement of the visa when they come over. But that's a tier 5 visa. I think Dave mentioned that and covered that as well.
Yeah.
And then there's one about, I'm assuming this is doing a DBS and not finishing it. You just end up having to start. You have to start it again. Just have to do it again and get it signed off. That's they do there's a limited period, and I don't know what that is. It's slightly different.
Seven emails, 7 chase emails are sent.
Yeah. Just please get them signed off. That's the thing. And that last slide, around the safe hands management system. I mean, I think the key thing is there's loads and loads of help there. There's some really good videos. There's a desk. It's just have a look at the videos. They tell you and work your way through it once you're on the system. I think there's videos in every single area. So once you get on that system, please use the help and support that's there. Okay, ready to move on, Richard?
Yeah, I think we're at questions, Mick.
Oh wait, we seem to have had a lot already. So,
Good.
you know, please either put a question in the chat, or if you want to use the reactions and put your hand up, that's equally fine. Is there anything else you need to say at this point, Angela? Anything worth adding, or have we seem to have had a pretty good coverage of most things?
Yeah.
Is it worth saying, Mick, that we're going to be sending? Well, Angela's put together in draft form a newsletter which will be going out.
Yes.
Soon, which will obviously.
It's not gone out yet.
No, we said didn't we the end of March, Angela?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah.
I'll have to change it again.
Yeah, so it will have a lot of updates and the information we've talked about tonight will be covered in that.
Okay, I just picked up one from Vicky at Ilkeston. Will everyone be on the management system before the beginning of the season? It's been rolled out by the ECB, Vicky. Nationally, there's 1,500 clubs to go on. No, not every club will be on before the start of the season. We're getting 2 or 3 a week in Derbyshire, so that's where we are with it. It doesn't. The stuff that you need in place is just the same information. So you still need to get your people DBS checked. So everyone, all the posts that we spoke about earlier, need DBS check. But you should have that information. The club should have that information in place anyway. And once you get access to the safe hands management system, it should be fairly easy to put that information on there. I mean, I'm not sure if I know the system itself, it's a new system and there are 1 or 2 little teething issues with it, but we did on the call last week, we had a club on that said that they were finding it very, very easy and straightforward to do. I know we'll probably have 1 or 2 clubs at the other end that it's not quite so easy, but I think generally it's going to be a real help to clubs when it arrives with you.
Yeah. The hardest bit on that, Mick, is I guess uploading all the key roles. So once you've put in the name and details of you don't have to put much detail in, email address of the people that are in the key roles, it then sends them an invitation to the system for them to complete their personal details. So if it's you as the club welfare officer, safeguarding officer, that is the administrator, it's not you that has to put all of their personal details in.
Yeah, I think the other thing, listening to some of the webinars that they do from the ECB, is the important thing is try to have a bit of a process for starting, and the best place to start is by, if you upload your club profile, it starts doing a little bit of the work. So it's just making sure you've got the information to hand that you would have anyway. Who are your team managers? Who are your coaches? Who are your captains, vice captains, welfare officers? All those roles that need, that need a DBS. Seen one from Nicola at Chapel looking for safe hand refresher. Nicola, if you just perhaps send me a reminder, I can send you a link to the ECB courses. They aren't on the website. They're being arranged. Well, I think they're on a weekly, if not twice weekly basis now. But if you send me an email, I can send you the link where you can access the courses.
Mick, on the DBS, so there's a question about contact details for those of us who can verify. We're going to put them on the slides at the end, so there'll be when we send the slide deck out, make you putting everyone that can verify on there, aren't you? So all the key contact details.
Yeah. Has there been any indication that the tier system will be reintroduced?
No is a simple, straightforward answer. We've not had any. I'm not saying it isn't, so don't take it as it isn't. But there's not been any discussion from the ECB. So Hannah Murphy, who's the government officer within the ECB, gave us an update today, and it wasn't mentioned. What they did say is there could be restrictions around how far you're travelling. So there might be, when we start the season, it might be playing local rather than someone in the north travelling all the way to the south of the county, as an example. But we don't know that at this stage, so it's speculation. But it's not been mentioned as of yet. How often do we do a safe hands course, Mick?
Face to face every 3 years. You've got 3 years, and if you've picked up the online one, it's 24 months validity. So that it did start at 12 months, but due to where we are and we've been in second lockdown, ECB have extended that to 24 months. You can pick the face-to-face. I think there's still a commitment to do face-to-face training for club welfare officers, safeguarding officers, from what the ECB tells us.
I think you've got to in some ways, because it actually mixes you in with your own county, and you meet other clubs, you meet the club welfare officers from other clubs and discuss things that are local to Derbyshire as opposed to countrywide. The problems we have in Derbyshire aren't the same as probably in Cornwall or Scotland due to location of grounds, etc. So that there's always going to be a difference. And the ECB are also always promoting the fact that they're like club safeguarding officers, to see the county and deputy to know who they're actually talking to if they need to talk to them.
Okay. Any other questions before we look to move off? I think we must be close to our time. Okay, and I think we've got a summary slide, Richard, haven't we, at the end? So they just, I don't know if we've covered everything off. So online training for club welfare officers, safeguarding officers will continue. And I'm not anticipating that to be any different until, as I said earlier on, in the summer. If anybody wants access to the link, please let me know. If you need to have a club safeguarding officer renew their qualification, or you have someone totally new, then let's get them on those courses or booked onto those courses. DBS continuing online. Safe Hands management system on its way for all clubs. I know, I can appreciate clubs are probably anxious to get onto it. We haven't really got any influence on that. That's the ECB that are driving it. When we get to one thing that clubs that are going to be on the system might think about is identifying someone within your club that would be appropriate to have as your administrator on the system. Or you can have more than one administrator. You're not limited to one administrator. But if you're not a club marked club at the moment, you might start thinking about that. It may be that the club safeguarding officer is the person, but it may be somebody else in the club that you want, or a couple of people to look after that.
Who are computer literate is quite often helpful as well.
Yes. Name change to club safeguarding officer, as we've mentioned, and then we've also talked about the additional welfare training for volunteers. The ECB have certainly, I think it's fair to say, ramped up the safeguarding support for county, for us as a county foundation, and for cricket and clubs in general. So I think please, take that opportunity. I think the more we can get people understanding safeguarding, the better. And was there anything else that we need to add there, Richard? that you can think of, or Angela?
No, I think there's just a couple of.
I'm sorry, Richard.
No, go on, Angela. I'll pick it up in a second.
Just for, you said about getting the new welfare officers, safeguarding officers trained. I mean, it is a league requisite for the Derbyshire County Cricket League that you should have a trained welfare officer at the start of the season. So with the online courses, it's actually possibly better this year, easier for clubs to get the people trained. And I do know from stuff I've seen that there are a couple of new ones coming through. So if we can get people on, and it's free.
Yeah.
Do it while it's free, and you haven't got to travel.
No, definitely. Kirsten, did you want to ask me something now or at the end of the call? You can go now if you're happy to ask in front of everyone. I wasn't sure what you meant.
Yeah, I don't mind. It's entirely up to you, Richard. I'm new to the role, and so I've never done it before. And I did the Safe Hands webinar in December, and then you think of things afterwards, don't you, to ask. And one of the things that I was unsure of is obviously children nowadays have mobile phones from 10, 11, not necessarily older than that. And my question really is if the coaches, is there a point where coaches are allowed to text children to talk to them directly about matches and selection, or at what age are they allowed to bypass the parents? That's what I'm trying to get at.
I think Angela will back me up, but I think basically when they're adults, so 18 plus is when they shouldn't be making any direct communication with minors under the age of 18.
No contact whatsoever. You can do it. You can do a WhatsApp group with all of the individuals in and with the parents in as well, but no individual contact. The club, you're a club mark club, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah, you should have a policy in place for social media and things like that, which should cover that as well.
Okay. The reason for the question is that somebody has contacted one of the coaches directly. They've obviously looked at our website and found the coach's details and texted him directly to say that they would like to play for us. And so on that, how do you then communicate back to that person when you know that they're under 18, when you don't have any of the details at that stage?
What I would probably suggest in that is that he gives you the details and you respond to them as a club and say, we need your parents' details to contact them. The coach can't communicate directly with you as an individual due to your age. If you wish to come and play for the club, if you give me your parents' phone number, contact details, we can contact them and with you and possibly talk to you. You could even do probably a Zoom call at this current time or something to talk to them, because we can't do the face-to-face. You could possibly do a Zoom call with the family. Yes. But I wouldn't encourage the coach to. I would put it to possibly yourself to go back to that individual and say, we'd love to have you at the club, but would you prefer it if coaches don't contact you directly?
Okay, thank you very much for that. Thank you.
No problem. And Vicky, we'll check that for you in terms of your courses, and I'll ask Charlie to give you an update on that.
Thanks.
No problem.
Okay, that sounds like we're about all done. So just really like to thank everyone for joining us tonight and for your ongoing commitment around this really, really important area. And I think it's been when we spoke about doing it, myself and Angela thought, well, if we get 15, 20 clubs on, that would be great. And I think we've been about 60 or 70 on. So I think it's probably something that we'll try and do a little bit more of in the future. So thanks very much for being on the call, and please do stay safe, and we'll look forward to seeing you throughout the season. We're going to add a key contacts at the end of the slides so that you've got those as well. and we'll get everything out. Please don't expect it. It might not be tomorrow, but it will be as soon as we can get it out to you.
The
Thank you very much,
contact details are on the website anyway.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.